Okay, so today we are going to do a lesson on dividing polynomials. We are going to look at basic like division with numbers like we have here, just to review how to actually divide using long division. Then we are going to look at two polynomial division problems where you use long division. And then if you notice down at the bottom there, we are going to look at the same two problems using synthetic division, which is just another way in order to divide, which a lot of people think is a little bit easier to use. But we are going to look at both long division and synthetic division. So if we go ahead and start here, up on the top we have just basic long division, 2,987 divided by 5. So if you think back to, elementary school, when you did long division, you would put that 5 on the outside, and then underneath of the house like that would be your 2, 9, 8, 7. And then just thinking about the steps that you do, the first thing is you divide. You say how many times does 5 go into 2? How many times does 5 go into 29? And then you multiply. And then after you multiply, you subtract. And then you bring down the next term. So let's go ahead and just do a quick review. So you have 5. 5, how many times does 5 go into 2? Well, 5 can't go into 2, so some people like to put a little X up there so you don't put the numbers in the wrong column. Then we think, how many times does 5 go into 29? Or how many 5 times what will get me as close to 29 without going over? That's another way to think about it. Well, that would be 5 times 5. I'm going to go ahead and erase that X because I don't want you guys to think there's a variable there. Okay, so we divide. Next we are going to multiply. We're going to take 5 times 5. We're going to take 5 times 5 and we get 25. Once we do that, then we are going to, darn it, I had the wrong thing. We are going to subtract. So remember this step right here is you subtract, which means you are going to take away from whatever you have there. So 29 minus 25 is 4. Our next step is we bring down the next term. Okay, so I'm going to bring down my 8, and then I do it again. How many times does 5 go into 48? 5 times what will get me as close to 48 without going over? That would be 9, and then we multiply, we get 45, and then we subtract and get 3, and then we bring down our 7. 5, how many times? 5 times what gets us as close to 37 as possible without going over? That would be 7. 5 times 7 is 35. We subtract and get 2. Well, there's nothing left to bring down, and in elementary school you might have added a decimal and some zeros. We are going to write it as having a remainder. So when we write as a remainder, as a fraction, the 2 goes on top, and what we divided by goes on the bottom of our fraction. Okay, so that's the basic steps for long division. So let's go ahead and do a couple of long division problems. I'm going to erase what I have here so I have a little bit more space to work my long division problems down here. Okay, so now we're going to use that same idea. Okay, we're going to have 4x squared minus 13x minus 5 divided by x minus 2. So on the outside of my house, I'm going to have x minus 2. And on the inside of my house, I'm going to have 4x squared minus 13x minus 5. Okay, so when we do long division with polynomials, we are only looking at the first term to start with. So we are going to look first at the x, which is 1x. Okay, we can put a 1 there if we want to. And we are going to say 1 times what will get me 4x squared. Okay, so I'm thinking 1x times what gets me 4x squared? Well, we would have 4x would get me 4x squared. So I'm going to put that 4x up here. And then when I divided, I said how many times does it go in? Now I'm going to multiply, so I'm going to multiply that 4x times both parts over here. So 4x times x is 4x squared. And then 4x times negative 2 is negative 8x. this is the tricky part you need to pay close attention to, because when you do the next step is to subtract. So when you subtract, remember we subtracted with polynomials the other day, you have to subtract everything that's after it. So I am going to, right here, I'm going to subtract both parts. So I'm basically subtracting changes the sign. So I'm going to change that sign from positive 4x to negative 4x squared, and negative 8x to positive 8x. So then when we subtract, our 4x squared minus 4x squared, those are going to cancel, and we have negative 13x plus 8x is going to give me negative 5x, and then I just bring down my next term. Now we do the exact same thing again. I say 1x times what will get me negative 5x? Well, negative 5 times 1x will get me negative 5x. So I'm going to have minus 5. Now I'm just going to multiply everything. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. Stop for a second. We have to subtract that, which means we are going to change the signs of both of them to the opposite. And so then when we subtract, our negative 5x and positive 5x cancel out. Negative 5 and negative 10 is negative 15. Okay, I have nothing else to bring down, which means that is my remainder. So then when I go to write my answer, I have 4x minus 5 up there on the top, and negative 15 is my numerator, and my x minus 2 is my denominator. So my final answer would look like this: 4x minus 5 with a remainder of negative 15 over x minus 2. Remember, this number right here is just what you're dividing by over here. Your negative 15, that's just your remainder, and this guy right here, 4x minus 5, is what you got up on top of the house when you divided. Okay, so let's go ahead and try another one here. All right, this time we're going to have to be a little bit careful, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. So we are going to divide x to the third minus 4x plus 6 divided by x plus 3. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is we are going to write our x plus 3 goes on the outside. Under the house, when we write what's under the house, if you notice there's a third power and there is a first power. You are missing the squared. So you have to make sure you fill in that empty space with a space filler that says 0x squared. Because when you go to divide, you have to have a space for every term, every exponent from highest to lowest. So you have to make sure you include the third power, the second power, the first power, and the constant. So we are going to put underneath of the house, we're going to have x to the third plus 0x squared minus 4x plus 6. And again, all we did there was we had a place filler for that x squared, so it has a spot. Now we are going to divide, and we have an x and an x to the third. Okay, x times what will get me x to the third? Well, that would be 1x squared. So the x squared is going to go right above the x squared. All of our exponents will line themselves up when we divide, so the x squared is going to be right above the other x squared under the house. So we have x squared. We're going to multiply around here. We have x squared times x is x to the third, and x squared times 3 is 3x squared. Remember, we stop here and think we have to subtract, which means we are going to change the signs of both of them, and then go ahead and combine. Our x to the thirds will cancel, and we have negative 3x squared, and then we go ahead and bring down the other two parts. Okay, then we start over again. We have x times what will get me negative 3x squared? Well, x times negative 3x will get me negative 3x squared. So I'm going to put my negative 3x up on top, multiply. Negative 3x times x is negative 3x squared. Negative 3x times 3 is negative 9x. Stop and think. We have to do the opposite because we are subtracting. So we're going to change the signs. Our x squareds will cancel, and we get 5x plus 6. We're going to bring down that 6. And then we say it again. X times what will get me 5x, which would be 5. So you'd have plus 5. We multiply around. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 3 is 15. Stop and think. We have to subtract, which means subtract's the opposite of what we're doing. Our x's will cancel, and we have negative 9. I have nothing left to bring down, which means this is going to be my remainder. And when we write it, we put the remainder in the numerator and what we divided by in the denominator. Okay, so that's long division with polynomials. Okay, it's a lot of steps, it's a lot to do. Lucky for you, there is an easier way. Okay, and it's called synthetic division. So as long as when you go to divide, what you're dividing by, like this right here, or this right here, is a binomial, like two terms, and it's something simple like x minus 2, x plus 3, x minus 5, x plus 7, something like that. You can use what is called synthetic division, which kind of turns division upside down and makes it a little bit easier. So what you do is when I say you turn division upside down, up on the top, your division box looked like that. When you use synthetic division, your division box flips upside down, so it's going to look like that. Okay, what you put on the outside is what you get when you would set your divisor, or what you're dividing by, equal to 0. Okay, so if we set x minus 2 equal to 0, we'd get x equals 2. 2 is what we're going to have on the outside of our house. Okay, and then all that you have to do, let me erase this, give myself a little bit of space. All you have to do is put the coefficients up on like the second floor of the inside of the house. Okay, so we would put 4, negative 13, negative 5. Okay, so all that is our coefficients is 4, negative 13, and negative 5. Okay, first step is you take that first number and you bring it straight down. Every time. It doesn't matter what that number is, you bring it straight down and you put it in the basement. Then you are going to multiply around. So you're going to take 4 times 2, which is 8, and drop it in. And then just combine. Negative 13 plus 8 is negative 5. And then you just repeat. You multiply around. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Drop it in, add them together, and you get negative 15. This last number right here is always going to be your remainder. The other two terms, the 4 and the negative 5, right there, are going to be the coefficients of your answer. Okay, well, how do we know what our exponents are going to be, all that stuff when you go to write our answer? Well, if we started out with a 4x squared, and we divided out an x, okay, we would be left with 4x, which means our first term is going to be 4x, and then minus 5, and our remainder is negative 15 over x minus 2. And essentially when you go to write your answer, this term right here, the power of it, the exponent value of it, is going to be 1 less than what you started with. And then each term after it, the exponent will go down by 1. Okay, so let's look at another one here where we have, again, these are the same problems you did up there. You got 4x minus 5 with a remainder of negative 15. You got the same answer using synthetic division. This time, same thing. We're going to put our house upside down. On the outside, remember, if it's x plus 3, that's like setting it equal to 0. So x is going to be negative 3. So negative 3 goes on the outside. Your coefficients go on the inside. So my first coefficient of my x to the third is going to be 1. And just like we did up on the first example with long division, you have to have a space filler for every value of an exponent. So we have 1x to the third, then we have to fill in with a 0, because remember there's like a 0x squared, and then a negative 4 and a positive 6. So we have our coefficients, we have what we're dividing by. Step 1, we drop it down. We have a 1, we multiply around. 1 times negative 3 is negative 3, and we drop it in. We just combine vertically. 0 and negative 3 is negative 3. We do the same thing again. We multiply around. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Combine. Negative 4 and 9 is 5. 5 and times negative 3 is negative 15. Combine negative 15 and 6, and you get negative 9. Remember that last number, that's going to be your remainder. The other 3 numbers are your coefficients. And remember, we started with an x to the third, and we divided out an x. So our first exponent is going to be x squared because we had an x to the third and we divided one of them out. So we are going to have 1x squared minus 3x plus 5. And then our remainder is negative 9, and we divided by x plus 3. I think you would find that synthetic division is actually a little quicker and a little faster once you learn how to do it. And as we move forward in this unit, synthetic division is going to be what you're going to be required to know how to do. Long division is good to know how to do, but it is not one that we are going to use a whole lot. I just wanted to show you how you could do long division and synthetic division and get the same answer. So you're going to go ahead, when you're finished with this lesson video, there's a homework worksheet in Schoology called Division Homework, I believe. So when you get finished with that, if you would, just work on it. And you may use synthetic division on all of the problems on the homework. You do not have to do long division. You can use synthetic division. Good luck.